That's true.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Hey, Eric, how's it going?
It's going. Sorry I'm a little late. I had to wait for my toddler to be done in the bathroom.
It's okay. We'll just dock it from your pay. It's no biggie.
Thanks. All right. So, your remarks here, that was like a little crazy fiasco. Um, all right. So we are going to start hopefully a very long journey of going through Seneca's letters. Mike and I talked, obviously his love of Seneca, and I kind of delved into it and started reading some of his letters. And I said, shit, man, this is like each letter kind of covers a singular topic. Some of them don't. So as we go through, we'll probably have to pull like two letters into one and find a singular topic to discuss. But I thought what a great framework for this entire meeting, because a lot of times I come up with these topics and then get into them and it's just me talking about my application of that idea to my life and then adding in stoicism, and then we don't actually get back to the stoicism part of it, or the reading about the original or going back and citing the original source material. So talking to Mike about everything, we said, this would be a great framework for us to kind of keep the meeting on track. So the first one is about time, and this is a topic that we had covered a little bit ago, about how best to use your time as practicing Stoics, and this is the first letter that he wrote to Lucilius, and it's, if you haven't read it, not a big deal, but I would invite you to take some time and go read it and really study it and break it down as to what he says. And my favorite part about reading that letter is thinking back to our meeting on the topic of using your time the best way you have. Like, we covered all of this stuff, right? Like, that's the great thing I love about Stoicism is when you start talking about ideas and concepts and how to apply Stoicism to your life, there are like these universal themes that everybody kind of agrees on, and you have this mindset really that goes into it. And I think that really was applicable to us in talking about time and how we use time, and now talking about it in the context of what Seneca says about using our time. And they mesh perfectly. Everything that we talked about earlier is in line with it. So now I'd kind of like to use his letters as the framework for this discussion. Um, I don't want to go through and read it, obviously, um, bit by bit, but I guess I'll start out by saying this. This is an area of my life that I need to be better about. We've talked about how I see my life as these spokes on a wheel, and each spoke are my priorities. And then I know that during my day, I need to devote attention to each of those priorities. The first one typically being work. And then when I'm done with work, it's usually family time, and then my wife and how we catch up, and then me time, right? So those are my four spokes: work, my wife, my family, and me. And the time that I devote to each of those during the day is shit. It really is. I mean, work is forced. I'm forced to be in work and thinking about it. But then when I have the freedom to spend time with my family or my wife or myself, I don't devote all of that time to that priority, right? And that's one thing that Seneca talks about in his letters, is if you examine the time that you have in a day, in a moment, in a life, you'll soon realize that a large portion of it is spent on, I can't pull up exactly what he says, but sorry, oh, I lost it. Oh, here it is. Okay. So he talks about how if you pay close heed to the problem, you will find that the largest portion of our life passes while we are doing ill. And I think ill in that regard, I think is, I guess there's a ton of context to that, right? But to me, doing ill is not in alignment with the purpose that you're supposed to be doing for that time period. He says, a godly share while we are doing nothing, and the whole time while we are doing that which is not purpose. So I guess the ill portion of it is not in terms of what I was thinking, right? It's ill, not the purpose. He already covered that. So the first portion of it is doing ill, just doing evil, I guess. But anyway, that statement of pay attention to what you're doing and realize that the time that you have is not being spent towards the purpose, or it's being ill, or it's to some other thing. And I can say that immensely. The time that I have from the time that I get to well, up in the morning, right? And I blockaded off my time and my day to whereas, as soon as my eyes open and I'm conscious in the morning, I have something to do, and that's my meditation. And that's where I take stock of where I'm at, what I'm doing, what the day before, the day that I have before me. And then after that becomes a process of chaos for about the next 45 minutes and getting everything ready to get out the door. Then I have a nice lull in the morning as I drive to work, and I use that time as that's my morning meditation, right? Holiday period. But then the day really starts for me when I get to work. And when I walk in the door at work, I've told myself that a perfect human being would sit down at my desk, open my computer, and get to work right away. And then you start working and don't stop until it's time to go home. And every bit of my fiber, energy, and effort, if I was perfect, would go towards that priority, would go towards work priority. And then when I would drive home, I can use that free time to whatever purpose. And then again, when I get home, all of my energy, fiber, and purpose would go towards the time with my son. It never happens. Obviously, none of us are ever perfect and we're ever going to do that. But it's frustrating to me to know what I'm supposed to do when I get to work and give all of my energy to work. And then I spend a lot of it on ill. I spend a lot of it on things that are not the purpose. I spend a lot of times with my mind wandering. And I've got mechanisms in place to try to get me back on track and check my objective and make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But the work is the biggest portion. And I think it's because I have so many distractions. I have my phone there, I have the internet there, I have books there, I have people to talk to. If you're put into a steel room with no distractions and no windows and a desk and a piece of paper and a pen, you're still going to find distractions. You're still going to find something if you don't want to do the work. And for me, a lot of it is my work is uncomfortable. I don't. I like my work. I don't like technical dirt. I don't like the people that I work with. So the work itself for me is a little difficult and it's very uncomfortable. So forcing myself to get into that uncomfortable feeling a lot is tough. And then after work's done and I get home to my family, that's my family time. I got about 2 hours where I need to spend time with my son. And I realized that this is it. So I get 10 hours with him Monday through Friday, essentially. We're not talking about the chaos in the morning. That isn't quality time at all. So I get 10 hours with my son a week. That's it. And that's the time that I realized that that's when I need to devote to being the best version of a father that I can be, that I really need to put down the phone, give all my attention to him, focus on what's going on, use that opportunity to teach him, to share, my experiences with him, to have fun with him. And then what ends up happening is I'm tired from working, or I'm tired from working out, or I'm ill or some other thing, and I don't devote all of my time. So I'm not using my time that I best with my, and the story goes on and on with my wife and everything else. So I am constantly failing in using all of the time that I have. And then it's frustrating for me at the end of it when I look back and say, you should have done this. You had the opportunity to better use your time and I didn't do it. But I think if you look at Seneca's letters, it's a constant reminder that this is a problem that everybody has, right? And it's letters like this that why he wrote Lycidas saying, hey, even though you're doing this right now, because he says in the letter, keep doing what you tell me you're doing, you still need reminders. Everybody does that. The time that you have is the best resource you have. This is your currency, and you got to look at it like that. That if anybody, whether it be a person, an idea, a game on your phone, an app on your phone that you're used to, or a general idea that you don't like to be uncomfortable in work, those are things that are stealing your time. And you can't let anybody steal that time from you because that's all you have, right? So that's kind of my background with my best use of time and how it's terrible and how I want to get better. And I think, us discussing Seneca really lays a groundwork for what you should do. And of course, this is all saying that this is my disclaimer that you can't put the cart before the horse. That this is, of course, with the understanding that you found your purpose, you've identified and set clear boundaries around your time and your purpose to make sure that your time isn't stolen from people. And then it's once you have that time blocked off, what exactly you're doing with your time. And so that's I just want to say that for anybody that, before you get into the idea that, you're not using your time wisely, I think you first need to find out how could your time be used, if that makes sense. So anyway, that's my story with how I use my time in this letter with Seneca and when I want to get into it. So I'll open up to you guys to give me your thoughts, your ideas, your critiques, best practices, and tips you have for me, how I can use my time better. Yeah, so let's go. Let's start it off running. Who wants to go? Nobody? Okay, I'll keep talking about Seneca then. Um, so looking at the letter, I want to break down, he's got 5 parts to it. The first part, it says he's talking to Lucilius, and he says, continue to act thus, my dear Lucilius, set yourself free for your own sake, gather and save your time, which till lately has been forced from you or flitched away, or has merely slipped from your hands. What a great opening. Like, I think to understand that the time that you have is yours, certainly, and this is the only resource you have. As Stoics, you can tell people that you have 2 things, essentially. You have your will to choose, and you have your time, right? Granted, time is not in your control in the sense that you don't have any idea how much of it you have, but what you do have is in your control. To a point, though, because what he's saying is, look at the time that's been forced from you. And no matter what you're doing, no matter who you are, whether you are the poorest of peasants in this world or the richest of kings, you're going to have time that is not yours. You're going to have responsibilities. The adage that, freedom isn't free kind of a thing, that yes, the majority of human beings on this planet in some political sense are free to do whatever they want. However, you still have responsibilities that pull on you, right? And the older you get, those responsibilities mount. And I made this comment to my wife a few weeks ago. She said something like, you have all the time in the world. And I said, hold on a second. If you look at your day and you take all the responsibilities that you're supposed to do, children, bills, or health, if you're going to live your life as a perfect human being and that everybody can objectively look at you and say, hey, you're doing it the right way. You're eating in moderation, you're working out, you're paying your bills because you have a job and you're doing all these things. How much time do you actually have in a day? If you say this is your free time, nobody's going to be pulling at you for attention. Nobody's going to be asking of your effort to maintain these responsibilities. How much time do you actually have? Free time. And then what are you doing with that free time? And as an adult in the 21st century in America, I don't have a ton of free time. If I had to break it down to, once I take care of all the responsibilities like working out and journaling and all of that stuff, we're talking minutes. We're not even talking hours that I have in a day, right? So what am I doing with that free time? And sadly, every instance that I have of free time is probably going to be spent relaxing because I'm going pretty hard in other areas of my life. But even then, he doesn't say in this letter, but even then, when you're relaxing, I think Marcus Aurelius said that there is a prescribed time for you to relax. Your body will let you know how long you've relaxed and whether that's enough, right? So if I get through my day and it's 8 o'clock and I think, man, I haven't worked out yet today. I know I'm supposed to, but I have nothing planned the rest of the night. My son's down to bed. Everybody's fed. Everybody's happy. It's 8 o'clock. I just want to sit on the couch and look at my phone or watch sports or something like that. That courage to act in that face of that, going, man, I could sit here, nobody's going to call me out, I could just do nothing. The courage to act and go, nope, you got to get up and go. That's been easier for me. Before Stoicism, I would sit on that couch for hours upon hours, and then I'd stuff my face with food and booze. Stoicism, though, it gives me that mechanism to go check your objective. What are you supposed to be doing? What have you laid out that you're supposed to be doing? If you fail, you're failing on yourself, kind of a thing. But ultimately, you have to realize that you have a purpose that you have to fulfill. You have to do these things if you're going to feel fulfilled, right? So I can sit on that couch and not do those things with my free time, but at the end of it, I don't feel fulfilled, and that's not the path towards happiness, right? And Stoicism tells you if you're going to be happy, you got to be uncomfortable. So I have now taken all of my free time. If I have free time for anything and it is devoted to a purpose, right? I have a Google document that says my priorities in life, and there's 4. And it has my wife, my family, me, and my work. And within those things, I have subsets of priorities that I want to try to fulfill and accomplish. And any free time that I have where I sit around, I find myself, and this isn't like, relaxing or recuperating. I have those times. I have those times built into my day where I'm allowed myself to, 5 minutes to recoup and meditate, things like that. But the rest of my time goes towards those purposes. And it's been the most freeing thing in the world for me. It's really kind of a weird mix to say at the same time, on one hand, I don't have any free time, but on the other hand, I've never felt freer because discipline equals freedom. It's one of Jocko's famous lines, but it's so true that if you have the self-discipline to carry out the plan that you have of what you want to do with your time, once you actually do it, you're going to find that you have the freedom to choose next what you're going to do, and you're not going to be saddled with the guilt. And that's one thing of the Stoic mindset that has really helped me as somebody that was a master class procrastinator and somebody that would use my free time as an idle space to just what I thought was relax. And then it took me a long time to realize that that's not relaxation. That's because I just want to be comfortable. I don't like the feeling of being uncomfortable, whether it's, going or reading a book that's hard to digest, or writing about things and journaling, or getting up and exercising. The default comfort for me is sitting on my couch, watching sports, being on my phone, doing nothing. But that's not going to progress me anywhere. That's going to get me towards happiness.
Hey,
So,
Eric.
Mike,
Hey, man. I just want to jump in there if you don't mind.
please.
And I think I would take a different approach, and I think given so my understanding, and obviously, it doesn't mean that it's right, but the way you kind of line up your priorities, work, life, family, me, I would say, if you don't have me, then you don't have anything else, right? So, in my personal opinion, to achieve what you need to achieve, I think it is absolutely paramount that we take care of ourselves, right? I think that if you put yourself last, then it's really difficult to maintain. I mean, and that's just my opinion, and I think my overall understanding. The other thing that I think you're right in terms of what ultimately we achieve in terms of how we use our time. And if I go back and think about what Stoicism is about, I would say the main goal is really to achieve, a lasting tranquility and happiness, good character, and so forth. And then the question is, how am I using my time in furtherance or to achieve, those virtues? And I think one of the things that you know Seneca talked about, that's pretty much all I read, is really ultimately is to achieve freedom, right? And you achieve that through preventing certain things from getting into your life to distract from some of the important things in your life, like you said, me, family, life, and work, and how well you're living in the moment to achieve those things. Some of the things that can take you off center is, like I think you've talked about, is negative emotion, distractions, and all those kinds of things. And I think that on a daily basis, I go back, and you and I actually talked a lot about reflection, right? Is how am I using my time to make sure that I stay on track in terms of some of the things that are extremely important to me and the things that keeps me centered, right? Um, and I, and that's why I go back and say to you is, if I was to line up my priorities in terms of things that that are important to me in my life, things that I have to do, I have to take care of me. If you don't have you, then you can't take care of anything else, right? If you are going sideways, then everything is going to go sideways with you, right? I mean, I think that's it. That's a reasonable statement. Somebody else may disagree, but that's sort of how I feel. And then how I line up my priorities and how I basically bring those into focus during my day, and how do I refrain from distraction to keep those things going. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Mike. And you're absolutely right. And I think we talked about this before. I think it was I'm trying to remember who called me out on it last time, about, the way I've always said my priorities being my wife number one, my family two, work, and then me four. And it's a little bit of a misnomer that I'm last in that priority. You're absolutely right that I come first. My happiness comes first. My wife and I actually been talking a lot about this idea that, in relationships, it's me, it's her, and then it's our relationship. Same kind of thing with, I guess, my relationship with life. The individual has to come first. You have to come first. I don't want that to be muddled in any sense, and I want to be unequivocally clear that you have to come first as a human. You have to find happiness. You have to take care of yourself. You have to be healthy mentally, physically, emotionally. If those things are not taken care of and the wheels aren't tight on your car, you're not going anywhere, right? So I absolutely agree with you on that sense. And I do things, and I think I've set up my day in such a way of using those boundaries, those parameters of, like, when I get to work, I start working, and when I leave work, I'm done working. And those has been a very magical tool in my life for setting my own happiness, because very easily those lines can bleed, and they start to bleed for people in different realms. And me, it was in the form of anxiety of not having a boundary for at the end of work, and people calling me and emailing me, and then having the sense that, oh, I need to respond to that email right away, or I need to worry about this matter right now, or I need to do that. That'll do it. So that's one way that I take care of me first. Is work is not, it's no longer my identity. Those boundaries are in place during the day, and then I don't think about work after that. Secondly is mental health. Obviously, I'm in therapy. I check in with my wife constantly to make sure I'm happy, but it's also, my mental health is directly tied to my effort and production and what I'm doing, and making sure I'm actively doing things. So working out every day, making sure that I'm doing things at work and taking care of my house, and not having my life fall into chaos and disorder. Because again, my default as a human being is to be lazy, to want to sit around and do nothing, and then left to my own devices on the weekends, I go crazy. My life is chaotic, guys. From the time I get off work until on Friday until Saturday night, like, that's a window. I try to give myself 24 hours to do everything, and I eat and drink and party like I'm 20 years old. It's crazy, but that's how I live my life. That's how I live my life, with the idea of, of being a river and going to the banks of, chaos and rigidity. So I've set my life up to support me and who I know me, right? I know that if I need these things to feel like a human being. I need these things to feel like I'm having fun. I need to go out and drink too much on a Friday night and eat too much, and then not work out at all Saturday and be lazy and have fun. But then come Sunday, this meeting has become my prompt to, okay, you got to be a responsible adult again. And typically after these meetings, we go and hang out with the family, and we go somewhere, and then we have lunch and things like that. But you're absolutely right that you have to come first. And I've set up my day and my priorities in a way, knowing me and how I've struggled in my life and trying to figure out what I need best. I now have these parameters and this setup to where I'm taking care of me first. Okay. And once I'm taken care of, and I've got my day laid out, then comes really number two. And that's my wife, to make sure she's taken care of, because if I'm not happy, she's not happy. And same thing with the other priorities. So hopefully that, like, clears up this idea that, nobody else is before me. But you're absolutely right, Mike, that, you have to take care of yourself first, and you have to come first before any of your other priorities. Otherwise it's going to fall apart. Ralph.
Hey, Eric. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I'm just looking at the first section here of the letter to Lucius here, to gather and save time. And I'm listening to you talk about like your experience with work, and it reminds me of my experience with my job. And I noticed that what I've done to help, that something that's been helpful to me, is that gathering time is something that I've done, is like, I take the time to see how much time that I have, whether I perceive it or not, and try to take inventory of that. And then also why it is that way. Like how come I have that much time, or how come I have that little time? And then it's something I went through recently, because I work in a corporate environment as well. And the job on paper that I have is very like kind of their work-life balance focused. Like they want you to kind of like, it's only a 37.5 hour work week. So they honor the fact that they want you to be at home a little bit, but then the way that they actually conduct themselves at work is like they work like animals. And anybody that's a supervisor or above is like on a salary. So other than the promise of like prestige or money in the future, there's no reason to work over that 37.5 hour work week or 40-hour work week, right? So I've been prioritizing myself, and I was sticking to that 37.5 hour work week pretty strictly. I wanted that work-life balance so I could explore other avenues of my life, like my side hustle and hobbies. But then recently I was like, you know what? I want to make more money in the interim, and I'm considering like a shift at my company to try other avenues just to diversify my skill set. But in the interim, I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll take on some other projects. And I was looking at the time that I had gathered, that I had taken inventory of, and I was like, you know, I can do extra work. And I was like, you know what, I could do easily like a 45-hour work week, and it would increase my money really significantly, and it wouldn't be like a huge burden on me, I don't think. But at the same time, this is like a trial period. I'm still considering like the things you're looking at, because I think that even though work is good and it provides money, like too much of anything is really just like gluttony. And I'm trying to be cognizant of like, okay, I'm working more, but is like my relaxation time more intense or more gluttonous, in a sense? Like, am I eating more processed food? Am I drinking more? Am I watching more shit TV, or just doing things that aren't productive? And it's only been like a few months of me doing this. And also I still have like a second job on top of this, but it's not too time, it's not like super heavily involved. But I'm watching this, and I'm trying to be objective. Like, and I know I was telling you, but I'm doing journaling and things like that, because I want that inventory just to see what's happening. Because even though work is like a big spoke on my life, like my priority is 100% me. So and it's been kind of weird, I've been getting sick more, and I work from home. So I'm like getting sinus infections and shit. And my job is not stressful. Like, you know, I just log on and I do what I got to do. And I've just been staying like an hour and a half later every day, roughly. So I'm taking notice of that. Am I still hitting my workouts? Am I still eating like vegetables and shit like that? Because the instant that those healthy things that I was doing with the work-life balance stops, then I know that the only variable is that, all right, I increased my workload. So something's wrong here, and I need to look at it like, is this sustainable to do this for a while? And I've been going through, I'm an accountant, so I'm going through like year end right now. So this is like an outlier situation, but I like the idea of gathering time, and I'm going to do like another like budget sheet in a way, just to see like, all right, this is what I've been doing. And last night I went out and like was quite gluttonous in a variety of aspects. And I want to see how I feel today, because I'm hungover right now. But if I have the impulse to like drink and eat a pizza again today, then yeah, something's up with the work thing. But we're gonna take the numbers down and then see how it plays out. So I just wanted to share that.
What a great tactic you have, man. I wish I had the self-discipline and honestly time to do that. Take actual physical stock of our time, just like a budget. And I love that you said that. My wife and I are having our budget meeting tonight. It's our big yearly, here's our goals for the rest of the year thing. And I don't know why we don't do that with our time. I feel like we should. It'd probably be easier, be a hell of a lot easier. But it's
Yeah, give it a try. It's really easy. It doesn't take that long. Like, it
right.
sounds like
It's
it takes
something I
long,
wish. It's
but
like I'm thinking about, like, I remember somebody told me, like, there's apps out there, right, to track your use on your phone and what you're spending your time on different apps, and whether it's productivity or entertainment and things
mhm.
like that. And that's exactly what we should be doing with our day, right? Like the greatest thing about time is that it's like the easiest measurable thing, right? Everybody's got 24 hours. And well, I want to stop from saying that shit. That was the comment that got me in trouble with my wife when I said, like, everybody's got 24 hours. And she's like, does a single mom with 3 kids have 24 hours? And I said, you're absolutely not. And I think that's when you break down how much time you actually give to yourself, and then talking about that time and what you're doing with it. And that's where the conversation should start. But taking stock of the time that you do have and how you're spending time is critical. It's crucial. It's just, I mean, look, Stoic principle tells you to meditate on what you want your day to try to look like, right? What you're going to try to focus on, what you're going to, obviously we can't control our day as it comes, but what are your goals? What are you going to try to do today? How are you going to try to live virtuously? And then after you fail, let's go reflect on that at the end of the night. So why can't we do that with time? What do you want your day to look like as far as your time goes, and how should it be spent? And at the end of the day, look back on it. And if you realize that you're fucking off more than you should, or you're spending too much time on things that you shouldn't be, I have what I consider a very, very like perfect work-life balance for me. And it's because it's time, or it's taken just trial and effort to get here, right? I have this general principle that I take a step forward, see how I feel. If I feel comfortable, I keep going forward. And I've done that with this process of my time and setting these boundaries. And, it's as simple as like sending an email to your boss and saying, hey, look, I'm not answering emails after work anymore. That talk about courage, man. Like I've sent that email to my boss, and it was a 4-month discussion leading up before I even sent it. Right. But that act and saying, here are my boundaries, you can't cross them. And of course, it was one of those, this is the true story. I sent that email and I was thinking like, oh, he's going to fire me. Like he's going to say, you're a lawyer, you have to answer emails. And he was like, okay, cool. And it's like, Jesus Christ, if I would have just done this, however long ago. But it's and taking that step forward and then feeling comfortable. And I was like, hey, I don't have to answer emails tonight. Okay. And now I don't. And that's who I am. That's kind of become part of my identity and what I do. So it's a constant practice, right? It's stoicism, like so many different things in life, is a practice, and you have to try to do something. That's the one thing, you have to be active about it. You can't just go, oh, my life's perfect, I don't need to do anything. You got to do things like Ralph's talking about. Take stock, figure out exactly how much time's going. And it would be pretty easy for me because my day's pretty regimented as far as at least Monday through Friday what I'm doing. And I would be able to figure out if I, like you, Ralph, wanted to take on a new project, or I don't know, my day's pretty filled up right now, but if there was something else that I wanted to do, like say I wanted to get into BJJ more, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, maybe I wanted to spend more time doing that, it would just be a give and take, right? So I say, hey, I want to add a couple hours on a Thursday. That's going to take away from something else, and let's move it around. But and listening to you talk, Ralph, one of the things that I also wanted to say is, while it's good to get rid of distractions, and it's good to parse down your life to make sure you have only the tools you want, one of the things that goes off the rails for me right away is friendships and relationships. And I've even said on here that I want to make making friends and keeping friends more of a priority, because I really do enjoy fellowship. And as a practicing Stoic, I understand that those relationships are key to my happiness. And for me, like I think about when I was a teacher, and like budget, it's like teacher salaries are the first thing that would fall off the table when you start talking about budget constraints. When it talks about my time budget, relationships are the first thing that fall off the table for me. So it's important to make sure that you keep those priorities wrapped up nice and tight, so you're not losing the things that are important to you. Speaking of things that are important to me, Michael, what you got, sir? Mike, had your hand raised.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was listening to Ralph, and I mean, what he said just made so much sense, because I in my life, generally speaking, I tend to hate leaving things unattended to, right? And I find that in the long run, it tend to be quite beneficial to me, where it seems like I'm able to address long-term or potentially long-term issues, or what could potentially become stressful issues. Dealing with them right away really prevents that from happening. For example, most of my friends envy the fact that I have an ex-wife. We have a son together, a 14-year-old son, and yet still we have absolutely no problems. There's never been a problem between my ex-wife and I at all. And to me, it's quite simple. I do what I need to do, and that's it, period, right? Um, like you mentioned your job, And there are people at my job, there are people on my team who are constantly stressed out about work. And for me, I am not. And that's because I put the things that I make sure my boss understands the person I am up front, right? He knows that I deliver. He knows I'm good at what I do. And I make sure he understands that, I enjoy a work-life balance, right? So when I'm at work, I'm at work. And when I'm at work, I'm going to give him everything I got. I'm going to empty the tank. And when I'm at home, that's a very different situation. I'm not going to be participating in work. And that's been sort of a mainstay of my life in general, where I really put things into context. And I think, I think you and I, well, actually, with the group, we talked about it before. And I said, one of the reasons why I believe that Stoicism, or the practice of Stoicism, just becomes a natural progression for me, it's because, it's like it's embedded in my character, right? It's something that I sort of grew up being, and then when I found Stoicism, it was sort of a natural adaptation for me. And so I just wanted to reinforce that point, and just to say that it's something that just really came natural to me in terms of how I deal with issues when it comes to finances and stuff like that. Those are things that I deal with up front. I don't make decisions, especially when it's going to be long-term decisions. I'm very measured in terms of how I deal with those things. And that's just typical in terms of how I operate. And I just wanted to share that.
Thanks, Mike. You said something there that resonated with me, and it's letting people know up front what your boundaries are, right? And that, I think, has been, you're that type of person that you understand that. I'm the type of person that I go into situations and I don't have a lot of times the foresight to say, hey, I need to let these people know. And then I address it once it becomes an issue, kind of a thing. And I realized early on in life for me, that was causing me so much anxiety because I wouldn't do what you do from the outset, whether it be professional or personal relationship. I wouldn't set those boundaries. And then when something became an issue, I may have thoughts like, oh shit, I should have addressed this. It's not fair to them for me to bring it up now. But Stoicism tells us that you don't have to be great all the time. You just got to be great in the moment, right? So if you weren't great yesterday, be great right now. Take the opportunity to set those boundaries right now, because they're so key to holding on to that time. So remember, time is the only currency that you can control in that regard, with the caveat, obviously, that you can't control how much of it you have. So thank you for that, Mike. I really appreciate that. Tony.
Yeah, how's it going? Hey, coming from a not natural Stoic, so I'll give my point, because a lot of the stuff doesn't come as natural to me. My job is set up in kind of an odd way. It's a little bit more of like a firefighter situation, to where it's a lot of downtime and then a lot of hectic time at different points. And I'm also on call as a manager, to where I can get called at any time throughout the week. I don't have to actually jump on a computer and do work, but I do need to answer the call and be able to be responsive to my employees and give them guidance. So that being said, my job comes with from my bosses down, the idea that there's going to be downtime at work, that, because you're expected to do things outside of the time. And it is very easy for my brain to lean very hard into that downtime and take full advantage of it, rather than, say, training or things like that I could be doing. So, and I also work from home. So I'm at home and just have 8 hours of the day where I don't actually have to be doing something at that moment all the time. And I find it very easy to, pick up a book and read, and throw on a TV show, things like that. So I have to fight that really hard. I think a few weeks ago, we talked about different tools that we use for keeping Stoicism in line, or keeping our goals in line. And have you guys, anyone ever used the Pomodoro timers? You kind of do that a little bit, Eric. It's kind of what you're describing it sounded like. And that helps me have just these burst periods that I know I can get it done. It's a lot harder for my brain to say, hey, you're going to spend the next 2 hours training, but I can handle 20 minutes, and I can focus on 20 minutes. If I set myself to do 2 hours of something, I'll probably get 11 minutes done in that 2 hours. But if I set myself 20 minutes, I can get 20 minutes out of it. So that's something I have to do, because I will lean towards the lethargy or the dopamine fix of reading some trashy sci-fi book rather than studying. So just want to talk about that and what some other tools that you guys use. And the other thing I want to talk about was just back to the original letters. If the goal of Stoicism is eudaimonia or happiness or tranquility, there's been a lot of research on humans being happier, being mindful, or paying attention to what they're doing, even if it's not something that they enjoy doing. Even being mindful of something that you don't enjoy doing can actually, if you later on take a survey or track your mood and the way that they do it with the research, you will report being happier than if you were sitting around daydreaming about nothing, or hanging out with your kid with your cell phone out, or this or that. They've done a lot of research on, and when I say they, I mean the scientific community, not just some random they, I guess. Having your cell phone with you while you're out with your kids, rather than leaving your cell phone in the car or locked up in a box. Like, you're going to pull out your phone, you're going to play with it, those sort of things. So back to that original bit, maybe it's not that we have all of our time set for specific things. It's making sure that when we are doing that thing, we are doing that thing, and just making that point that we're whole assing the thing we're doing, rather than maybe making sure that thing is the most productive thing in the moment. Just that conversation.
Yeah. First of all, Tony, thank you so much for bringing up the Pomodoro technique. And I wanted to get into some of the tricks that I use throughout my day. And that's a huge one for me that I use. Thanks for bringing that up. And going back to the letters, he talks about, it's in the fifth section, or from the fourth into the fifth. And he's talking about what he does in his time, saying to Lucilius, if you want to know how I do, and then I'm able to preach to you that I'm so freely. And he talks about that his expense account balances, as you would expect from someone who was free-handed but careful. And he boasts that he wastes nothing. And in line with that is the idea of getting rid of distractions, right? If you're wasting your time with distractions like your phone, and let's take Tony's example, I do it all the time. I did it all the time when I was a young father, and I didn't know what the fuck I was supposed to be doing with my kid at the park other than watching him. And then you realize it's kind of boring to watch a 2-year-old try to get up a slide backwards or something. He's not going to get hurt. So what do? I pull out my phone. I'm like, well, let me try to get some wisdom in my brain or something. You realize that that's not what you're supposed to be doing. What I'm doing is I'm at the park with my son. I should be up off my ass and being the best version that I can of myself in that moment, right? The best version of a father at the park with his child is not sitting on a bench watching his child. There are so many opportunities for me to be the best father I can be at that moment. But in no way, shape, or form does it include me on my phone. So we'll leave the phone in the fucking car. Simple as that. Me at work, Pomodoro technique saved my life. Guys, I can't express this to you enough. Like, I would get same thing that Tony talks about. Like, I'd have somebody come out and say, hey, you need this project due tomorrow. And if you look at the big project, you're going, holy crap, that's how do I take the first step? Where do I go? And you become, disabled, you're paralyzed by inaction kind of a thing. And for me, it was small steps. Just do something. You have to act. I had a meditation this week that was about just acting, doing something. And you're so right. You have to just take some action towards that task. So Pomodoro, take 20 minutes, go work on it. And then you get 5 minutes to do nothing. And that's really, I have it on my computer still, Tony, that it's still there if I need to do it, a little timer, but I don't use it anymore. That's how I set up my day. And there are days when I do a lot of vet outreach for like old friends that I have. And there are some days when they have shit going on that is consuming and they're texting me constantly. I have to leave my phone in the car because I can't be distracted by that. And I'll let them know, hey, text me everything you want to say, but for the next 4 hours, I'm going to have to work. So I just leave my phone in my car kind of a thing. And I don't have them anymore, but I had this app thing that would shut off Instagram for me. So I couldn't look at Instagram, or I couldn't look at another app that I would use. So things like that to restrict what you can on your phone. But I would give this advice to anybody: just forget your fucking phone. Use it for what it's worth to communicate with people, actual calls, actual text messages. As Stoics, I would love to have we're going to find it in here at some point, but as practice, Mike's going to yell at me for calling myself a practicing Stoic. As somebody who follows Stoicism, your phone should be shunned for the most part, because, and I'll tell you why, because we should shun all imagination, right? You shun yesterday, you shun tomorrow, you shun imagination. You live right now in the future. Your cell phone is nothing more than a time machine. You get to pick up your phone and go somewhere else immediately. You get to go to another time immediately. You can go look at pictures from however long ago. You can do anything in that time machine you hold on your phone, but that's imagination, right? You're not actually there. Your reality exists in what you can touch, what you can see in front of you. So the idea that you pick up your phone and just enter a realm of imagination, unless it's direct contact with a human being, you shouldn't be doing that as a Stoic. So that's a hard reality to accept for a lot of people. Put down your damn phones. Go live in the world that you live in right now. We're the only creatures on this planet that have the ability to engage with the technology that lets us be completely mindless, right? So take that into account when you're on your phone next time. What you got, Ralph?
Yeah, that the phone thing is big. And when you were talking about trying to set boundaries for with work and your boss and not answering emails after hours or whatever, I did something similar, but with Reddit. I was like on Reddit, like my subreddit selection was all kinds of like stuff like memes and cute animals and all kinds of funny shit. And I did have earth porn on there, which is something that was like something I did enjoy because I'm interested in photography and that art. But because I had so much other subreddits, I never saw it. But I wouldn't at this point consider it anything like productive. It was just like a time wasting tool. So I knew it was a problem, but I just put off doing anything about it. And then I took stock of how much time I was spending on Reddit on my phone. And I was like, fuck, this is a lot. So I uninstalled the app. But then, of course, what I did is I just used Chrome to use Reddit. And then I would do this like thing where I was going to Reddit on Chrome, and then I would have like this little dance where the website's trying like, oh, you should install the app. I'm like, nah, fuck that. And then it's like the only reason I would stop using Reddit is because the fucking browser was being so goddamn annoying with trying to get me to uninstall the app. I still had this hunger to go look at my memes and like my cute animals and shit. So I noticed what I was doing is I was putting off doing something about it until it became an issue. So what I did is I recently installed this app on my cell phone called BlockSite, and it allows it's able to tell if you're using a particular app or going to a particular website on Chrome, either on your phone, or I think it works for desktop too. So now it's impossible. I would have to uninstall BlockSite in order to use Reddit. And thankfully, I have not uninstalled BlockSite. So that really kept me from going to Reddit. And my day it opened up a lot, like big time. Like I probably gained like 2 hours from that. And then also another thing too is I just purged all my subreddit. I think the only thing I'm subscribed to now is earth porn, Stoicism, and then Buddhism. I subscribe to just those three things. And I think like Get Motivated is another one. That was one that I originally had, but again, it was just like getting pushed to the bottom because it knows that I like to memes. But I got rid of all that stuff, and yeah, my day completely opened up. And I go to Reddit like daily, like on my work computer, or like my desktop. But like I only spend maybe like a few minutes on that, and I'm still working on it and trying to take count that I'm not like just pissing away time on it. But I noticed that I had an important issue to deal with, and I wasn't dealing with it immediately. I just kept putting it off. And then I think it was an issue of perception where it's not a big deal. It's only an hour, and it's only an hour turns into like 30 hours. If I was letting it turn into 30 hours. So I noticed that really getting any issue dealt with as soon as possible before it becomes a big issue was very helpful to me. And this was just like an example of that.
Yeah, I would say this, like those tools for blocking sites are great. And I used them, I think, when I first started. But like any tool like that, remember that you can't use it as a crutch, right? I'll tell everybody my Josh Hamilton story. Don't have your accountability partner be the reason that you are able to do something. So now, knowing that I have this insatiable need, and fuck you all, I'm going to call it a need, to get on Reddit, just like you, Ralph. I have a need every day. I need to go and check Reddit. I need that time to go through and look at the shit that I want to see. So I did like you, and I parsed my Reddit down to things that were only beneficial to me. So now mine are Stoicism, like baseball news. It's like shit. It's so completely different than what it used to look like. And I can run through all of my Reddit in like 5 minutes. And I set time aside during my day to do that. So it's about limiting the distractions, but knowing that you as an individual are completely unique and you know what you quote unquote need, right? And I say that quote unquote because we all know it's not an actual need. You're not going to die or cease to exist if you don't have something, but for your morale, for your happiness, for you to fulfill, to you to feel like you've gotten some sort of recharging or energy or entertainment throughout your day, go do it. Do it in moderation though, right? So instead of taking an hour, go spend 10 minutes on it and just get the highlights of what you need. Tony, what you got?
I don't want to make this whole thing about Reddit, but I had a similar issue, and I also used BlockSite and things like that. But then what I found what worked for me was giving me the ability still to go to Reddit. But what I did was I don't log in anymore. So I don't log into my actual account because my issue was getting into comment either fights or just whatever. I mean, I remember like 2 years ago in the last elections or things like that, that was just like a bad negative place for me to be. So what I do now is I got rid of logging in, and I just go directly to a few subreddits that I enjoy. So I go to r/Stoicism, I go to our Buddhism, those are two of mine. I go to meditation, I go to a few bike subreddits, but I only look at them specifically at that subreddit at the time, rather than my feed being filled up by the algorithm of launching it at me. Because it's a lot easier to scroll through that feed and just always have all your, you can spend, you guys both know you can spend half an hour, you can spend an hour, you can go through all of your links and turn them purple by looking at them. But if I'm looking at just one, I go, this is a few minutes that I'm going to look at Stoicism. And then the thing that happens in your brain is if you look at your feed with all of them on there, you're going to see Stoicism and you go, that's cool. And then your brain goes, oh, I'm going to look at my bike subreddit. That's the next thing that pops up. And you get a dopamine hit because it's new and novel for each thing that you're doing. And it'll feed you and you'll sit there and keep going. At least for me, sorry, talking about me. I'll go through that feed and keep going. Whereas if I'm looking at just one subreddit, I can satiate myself because I look at a few Stoicism things and I go, oh, I got my time in for that. And then I can jump off. Whereas looking at my feed and scrolling through it, that was kind of my trigger of doing it for me. So I just built my behavior to not log in at all, and I just jump straight to the subreddit that I want, and then I can jump back out.
Great tip, Tony. You talked about using time versus the wanting to find something that's entertaining. That was my problem. I would go on something of like, I'm going to look through this thing until I find something that's entertaining and I've satiated my curiosity, whether it be Reddit, Wikipedia, no matter what I wanted to go and like spend my time doing. I use a lot of my free time to find find things I'm curious about and to read about them. And I would do that in like falling down Wikipedia like rabbit holes for hours, and then realize that you haven't found anything new or novel that, satiated that desire to want to know something. And now you've wasted a bunch of time. Now my mindset is you get 5 minutes, so hurry up and go. It's like a blitz for, curious information. So going through my Reddit, just like you talked about, Tony, I'll flow through them like seen it. No. Oh, this looks like, read this. Timer goes off. All right, back to work. Right. So it's understanding, again, those boundaries that you've got to have them built in to take care of the things where you get to rest, recharge, and, do things other than the things that you find uncomfortable, like work or, tasks, duties, responsibilities. So absolutely. Thanks for that, guys. The one thing that I was going to say as far as distractions and everything else is, well, I kind of touched it earlier, is simply it's moderation. That you have to realize that I'm going to harken a little bit there, Tony. You talked about not on you, sorry, but I'm going to hark on an idea that you brought up about the election and talking to people about that stuff and putting comments. Remember, and this has been a part of my motivation or meditation this week. Don't add anything to a conversation unless you're actually adding something to a conversation. Don't ever feel a need to speak just because you want to speak, right? And first off, the first question you ask yourself is, do I need to speak? And the practice of Stoicism has brought me a lot of fulfillment is, don't speak until somebody asks you to speak, until somebody asks you a question. Don't ever go off in your world and give your opinion like you're orating to the world. You're going to solve the world's problems. That was me, still is me, guys. Hell, I host a Stoic Meetup Group, and I'm the one talking most of the time, right? This is a problem for me. And I love to talk, but I try to get better in talking about terms of your time as a currency and the time that you have. I think we can all realize, not all, take that back. I can certainly realize that I waste a fuck ton of time just talking about things that don't mean shit. I'm not adding to a conversation. I'm just talking because I want to give somebody my opinion. And you have to realize that that is a very toxic mindset to have, because number one, nobody's asked for it most of the time. Number two, if they have asked for it, do they have the authority to elicit their response from you, kind of a thing, right? So if you're wasting your time, you're spending your time engaged in conversations that ultimately don't mean anything, because guess what? As human beings, we are our actions, not our words. So quit fucking talking so much. That's what it boils down to me. And if you clap back against that and say, well, I need to talk because it's my purpose. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is supposed to be the best version of myself in this moment. That's fine. Then you better be doing it as efficiently as possible. And an efficient conversationalist means that you're only adding things to the conversation and you're only talking when a response is required of you, right? So the Reddit comments, and I commented like 3 times in the Stoicism Reddit this week because I thought I had good responses to people that were in problems. But then after the fact, I'm like, why am I spending my time giving somebody an opinion that they ultimately didn't really ask me about? They're asking the world, and why do I feel that I should be included in the world to give responses back to people? You know, so there's my 2 cents on that. Alex, hey brother.
Hello. You you guys can say I'm realistic, and I was always being very like mindful about this idea. Like if I don't add value to the conversation, I better not to speak. But you know, it will really prevent me from speaking at all. Especially for me, I'm not that like versed in Stoicism, and I feel. But I still feel I want to get engaged, and it prevent me from joining, participating. That's an issue for me. So I guess that we could be more nuanced for people like they know what they're doing, and they need to be meant for not like how to say taking too much time. But for some people, that will be pushing themselves, like if you don't know much but you still want to participate, even maybe you won't add value to the conversation, but you can like try to be like engaged and to just to participate. I don't know.
Yeah, look, Alex, I'm so glad you brought that up. You're absolutely right. What I was talking about was I'm the antithesis of you. I won't shut the fuck up because I want to talk to everybody and I want to be engaged with everybody. And I'm what they call an extrovert kind of person, right? So you can't shut me up. Versus you and some other people that I know in my life who are introverted and have, you know, maybe social anxiety or they want to get involved in a conversation. Well, I would say to that, do that, but still that's a priority that you have for yourself. Set time aside for it and practice it, right? The same way I should set time aside by being quiet. Maybe next week or one of these weeks, I'm going to say, hey, one of you guys are going to host this and I'm going to sit in the background and shut the fuck up and practice not talking for a week, right? That's what I should do. So in that same situation, I would say anybody that wants to be engaging more often, set time aside and go get involved. Say, I'm going to take an hour and I'm going to go post comments on Reddit. I'm going to go get involved in discussions. I'm going to go out to a bar and see if I can meet a friend or something like that. But the wrong action would be to spend, you know, time at work getting involved in Reddit discussions and trying to, you know, yell at people online kind of a thing. So that's I think what we're talking about. But I know everybody's taking off soon. I haven't really said bye to anybody, but for all you guys that leave when you do, I'll say bye now. But anyways, thanks for that, Alex. I really appreciate you saying that. And look, brother, speak up. This is the forum, right? This is the forum that you get to get engaged with everybody. So I love that you come here and tell us how we're all wrong all the time. I love it. Not that you do that, but, you know.
Thanks.
Hey, Ralph, you got your hand up, man.
Yeah, I like what Alex said too. I've thought about that too, because I'm like mostly extroverted, but I do have like introverted qualities. I'm probably like 65, 35, 70, 30 extroverted. So like I noticed that too, that like if I'm out somewhere and I'm like at a party or something and I'm trying to talk to people, but then they're talking over me or whatever, I know that I will get in that habit of like, all right, I'm getting quiet. And one thing that I've realized, and I'm going to cite section 4 here of Seneca, his letters to Lucius, is that like when I'm with people and they're not respecting what I'm saying, or they're talking over me or whatever, then they might not respect themselves and they might not respect me. So the hard thing for me was to realize that, and B, to like move on, just to like let that go. So and he's talking about here is that he's practicing. I guess Lucius' response after 3 was like, "Oh, you're so good at what you're doing," or whatever. I'm not entirely sure, but he admits that he's practicing, and he talks about he can't boast that he wastes nothing, but he can at least tell what he's wasting and the cause of the manner of the loss. And I had to admit that to myself, like, it's okay that I made this choice to spend these time with these people to not that didn't respect me or themselves, to like let me finish a sentence or whatever. But now I at least know that I've already tried this avenue with these people, and maybe there's something with them and I can come back to them and it'll be different in the future, but I should probably move on and go to a place where I can be spoken. And through that practice, I found like a nice little community and group of people that when we hang out, it's very compartmentalized about the things that we're doing, the activities that we have, and my words are valued and I value what they say, whether like we're just joking around or we're having more philosophical or intricate discussions like these. And I'm trying to practice the best I can and trying to take inventory of that practice so I can kind of look back and be objective to myself. So I just wanted to go back on Alex with that, because that sucks when you're hanging out with people and you want to talk and nobody's letting you, and it's like, well, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, I can think back to when I used to be in what I call the conference circuit. So I was like, it seemed like every other week I was going to these conferences, and that's all it was, like professional networking. And you get these people that are like conversational bullies, right? They just take hold of the conversation, don't let you get an word in edgewise. And this was right in the midst when I was like going back to my hotel room and I would read meditations. I was reading Stoicism. Well, I was listening to them all. And I remember thinking, like, pity the fool, like just pity that person, because this is them. It's not my fault that I can't get a word in edgewise. They're just a bully. And I will tell you, my God, embracing that mindset of, if I'm trying to talk to somebody and trying to engage in them and they're just holding the conversation hostage and I'm not going to be able to, understand that this is what was supposed to happen, that this is who they are. I'm never going to be able to get an impression upon them, so don't try, stop bothering it. But the dichotomy for me comes, well, how much can I control a conversation, right? How much influence do I have? Can I manipulate a conversation until I control it and get a word in edgewise? But ultimately, people are who they are. There are very few people that practice Stoicism, and you're not going to come across people that are equitable, especially in conversations. But again, that idea that this is what was supposed to happen to me has always been a game changer for me too, because I would think back to those situations. Like, let's take Alex, I'll pick on you a little bit, right? Let's say you set aside time to say, I want to be involved in more engaging in a conversation about X. You get into that forum, you're in that venue, and you find yourself unable to speak, whatever reason or causes it is, whether it's somebody else that's hijacked the conversation, or whether it's your own inability. You have some anxiety towards speaking, and the hour ends and you never said a word. I hold the belief that that's how it was supposed to happen. That's what happened, was what was supposed to happen because of whatever the cause and effect was, right? And it's up to us to in our reflection, identify what happened. And if you can break down and say, well, it didn't happen because this person hijacked the conversation, there's nothing I can do about it. All right, move on. But if you can identify that, oh, well, it was my inability to speak, I had an opportunity, I didn't do it. Well, what happened? And that's where you spend time reflecting and say, okay, well, next time I'll try to work on this. I'll try to chip away at that anxiety and work on me a little bit better, or take some practice to do that and go after it again. And it goes back to what we talked about before with general anxiety of, if you get to a situation, you feel anxiety, listen to it. Why do you have it? And then learn from it, kind of a thing, right? So if you're taking the time that you have and you feel that you're failing, Stoicism tells you, great, that's what was supposed to happen. That's good. Enjoy it. Love the fact that you failed. And the next time, try to do better. Try to be great next time. Try to be virtuous next time. Stoicism's got the greatest memory in the world, in that it forgets everything immediately and you only focus on what happens now. And everybody's great right now as long as you're being virtuous. I don't care what you do in the future. I don't care what you do in the past. You focus on right now. So, all right.
Yeah.
Anyone else got any?
I feel like this moderation could go both ways, right? For people, they are like naturally will talk a lot, speak a lot. They will like feel comfortable speaking. For me, yeah, I'm more introverted. Unless I'm very certain I know this topic and I know how to respond. Otherwise, I will be very self-talking about, oh, whether I should talk. So yeah, I always regret I didn't engage the conversation. Yeah, probably I should push myself a little bit, like to just speak out. I know I didn't take too much of people's time, you know, in the conversation, so I should at least like speak out, and yeah, just to see like how people respond, what my thoughts. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, right? You have to do that. You have to, if that's your purpose in getting better about speaking and something you want to change, you have to do it. And you can't focus on the negative or what could happen. Right. You just have to focus on the act itself because you don't know what's going to happen. That's the whole game of anxiety of, trying to figure out what's going to happen and if it's going to be negative or not, and you don't know. So don't focus on it. Just focus on the act and trying to do those things. But anyways, to Ralph's getting out of here. Hey, Elaine, Mello, I saw you guys there. If you guys don't have anything else, I think I'm going to get out of here too and go get our day started. Next week, we got, oh, balls. I just had it. But anyways, we got the next Seneca letter, so I'm excited to talk about that one, unless anybody else got anything else. All right, guys, go have a great Sunday and keep your time to yourself. Don't let anybody steal it. Same thing with the week. All right, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you,
Have a
guys.
good one. Thanks, Alex, Ralph, Mello, Elaine. See you guys next week.